And congratulations to you all. You are celebrating the 5th of December. It's International UN designated Day for Volunteering. And it's so significant that the UN would, of course, want to celebrate volunteers and have a dedicated day every year for volunteers. We're so excited at Student Volunteer Ireland to host our guest speaker. Sean Kelly is here to tell us all about hot off the press research he was undergoing over the last year. We were reflecting back on when did we do the interviews, and just about a year ago. So it is very contemporary research, Sean, in a post-COVID context. We're always saying we need more up-to-date research. So we're thrilled you could share with us today a little bit about the work that you've done and published. And you got your 1-1 result in. So that first class honours, this is not only the most up-to-date, it's high caliber research. So we're really excited. So I'll hand over to Sean, who has a few slides, is going to take us through his research. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you for inviting me along to this event.
And I'll just stop you there now for a second. Can everyone hear Sean? Yeah, so the audio's gone low, Sean. Do you want to try it again there?
Yeah, so is that any better?
Perfect.
Lovely.
Oh, great.
So thanks a million, Lorraine, for inviting me along today and to share my research and my findings. Honestly, I didn't think these would see the light of day again. So it is lovely to be able to talk about something that I am passionate about and that I have had an interest in a long time. So I was fortunate to get to cover it in my master's. My master's was a professional leadership master's, but it was great that I could bring in the community engagement experiences and my lived experiences into it. So my research title was Cultivating Leadership Through Community Engagement Experiences. And I suppose I really wanted to explore the true value of leadership through community engagement experiences and volunteering experiences, and to determine if they propel individuals across other aspects of their lives, be that academically, professionally, or even personally. And this is grounded really in the central aim, which was to establish an understanding of community engagement and if leadership skills are developed or enhanced because of these experiences. And I suppose to note, anytime I mention community engagement experiences, I am, of course, talking about volunteering as well. And I'm conscious that this is a student volunteering platform and format here. So it definitely, it is very much at the heart of community engagement. So to achieve the aim and the objectives that I worked through then were to investigate what the term community engagement meant to the stakeholders involved, to analyze community engagement perspectives through the discipline of leadership specifically, and to determine if these skills are transferable as a result of the experiences. I also wanted to determine participants' knowledge of leadership styles, and particularly styles associated with this sector, to identify what makes an effective leader and the importance of future leaders in community engagement and, of course, volunteering. And finally, then, to understand the impact of community engagement leadership and its wider role that it plays in the context of global citizenship. So into the nuts and bolts of it then, the methodological approach was determined really by the subject of the research, and it impacted the philosophical direction. And in this case, I took the positivist approach. And this, of course, is knowledge that can be based on what is objectively observed and experienced. And being guided by Saunders Research Onion, I found this a great step-by-step pathway or a roadmap that really determined the methodological approach I was to use. And in this case, for me, it was a qualitative methodology. And qualitative methodology, it just resonated better with me, especially as a first-time researcher, because of its narrative approach, really. It focused on the interpretations of the participants, of their lived experiences through their spoken words, their thoughts, and their feelings. So I had 14 participants, 7 of which were university students, and the other 7 were who I referred to as non-student participants. So they included professionals, retirees, or volunteers. And I gathered the data through online semi-structured interviews. So meeting with every individual on a one-to-one basis on this online semi-structured platform. And I just feel that the data, the rich data that I seeked, that I really wanted to get, I just wouldn't have gotten it from the numerical-based quantitative methodology approach. And, you know, in simple terms, I'm not a numbers person, and I was much more excited and eager to meet with people and to talk and to really decipher their experiences, their lived experiences, and gather the data that way. So once I had known that it was a qual approach, gathered my data, and then I employed thematic analysis, and specifically a codebook thematic analysis. And this helped identify links and relationships through the collected data. From the data then emerged key themes. So there were 4 main key themes, and then from the 4 key themes also emerged sub-themes. So the first key theme for me was understanding community engagement, and the sub-theme that came about from that was understanding and recognizing community engagement. Now, it was interesting to hear the students' perspective about their early experiences, and throughout the chat, throughout the conversation we've had, it was so lovely to hear the light bulb moment, or the aha moment in the interview, when they realized that their actually experience in community engagement or in volunteering happened much younger than they realized. They just didn't put the term to it, or they didn't put the community engagement title to it. So it was really cool to be there when the students realized that, yes, they in fact have been involved for a lot longer than they realized. Influencing factors then and personal values. Family was a reoccurring influence. Mothers in particular were a reoccurring influence, which I found interesting. And this led to the students' personal core values, and values that seemed to be passed down from one generation to the next. Researching in the lived experiences then, finding the right type of volunteering or community engagement experience for the student posed a bit of a challenge, because they often had to rely on knowing someone who had been involved before them in order to get the information for the particular organization or for the volunteer opportunity that would suit them best. There are lots of opportunities out there. There's lots of organizations out there, lots of websites out there, but it was refreshing, I suppose, and relieving to hear that students are cognizant and mindful that they're signing up, or that they're joining something that's morally and ethically sound. So that research is an important element for them. The next key theme was leading in the context of community engagement. And the first sub-theme from that emerged was leadership skills prior to and during the experience. So I did anticipate there were somewhat limited leadership experiences when you compare it to the non-student sample groups that I had, and this was to be expected. However, there were clear defining moments of leadership throughout the secondary school time that students, the former second level school opportunities that presented themselves, as well as other opportunities outside of school. And in fact, sports and sports teams came up with the student sampling group. The growth in self-confidence was highlighted by many students as well as a huge positive during their community engagement or volunteer experience. Transferable skills then, transferring their leadership skills across academic and personal lives were highlighted among all students. And in turn, when these students graduate, it stands to reason that these skills will also carry across to their professional lives, whatever sector or whatever industry that they pursue when they complete their studies. Leadership styles then, I was curious to find out what leadership styles the students' sample groups were aware of. And there was a limited understanding and awareness of leadership styles among the student participant group. Some were mentioned, but not specifically associated with community engagement. The ones that were mentioned were facilitative, authoritative, democratic, laissez-faire, bureaucratic. But it wasn't my intention really to delve deeper into leadership styles. I was simply interested to know if students were aware basically of leadership styles. And I think I also learned that unless it's on their curriculum or unless they have a leadership module, they would not be really aware, I suppose, of the different styles out there. So then the third theme was future leaders in a changing and challenging world. And the first sub-theme from that ended up being encouraging others, or the encouragement of others. Students were very keen to encourage others towards community engagement leadership, as they were once encouraged. And students also recognized the importance of leader successors in order for the work to continue or the projects to continue. And again, this was a very responsible attitude, I felt, from university students, that while they're in university, while they may be involved in community engagement, in volunteering, they of course will inevitably move off. They'll graduate, they could travel, they could end up working away in a different country, but to be already mindful of, well, who's going to carry the baton? Who's going to take this over or lead in my absence when I'm gone? So that was very encouraging, I suppose, and lovely to hear. Community engagement at school then, a structured approach. There were quite strong views from the sample group when considering community engagement being afforded to students at post-primary level. Now, such a process is currently proposed, I should say, by Ireland's National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, where some form of volunteering or community engagement will be integrated into the TY curriculum experiences going forward. However, the data also opposes the theory that community engagement is in fact an all-inclusive concept, open and accessible to everyone. So I think a lot more research and keeping an eye on things as they develop will be required here. Identifying effective leaders then. I asked the participants what characteristics they would expect to find in an effective leader. So common characteristics that they mentioned included good communicators, listening skills, empathy, respect, and adaptability, to name but a few. However, one interesting observation was made in relation to a lack of empathy among young people in today's society. And this is due to a desensitizing, really, of global problems, of local problems. And that can be really traced and linked back to the effect of social media. How easy is it for us to keep on scrolling through the news feed if we don't like something or we're exposed to something that is not pleasant to look at? It's so easy to keep on scrolling through it. So that's where the desensitizing element comes into it on that. And I found that really interesting. Fulfillment then and empowerment. The data suggests that achieving a sense of fulfillment and empowerment initially begins with that self-confidence growth, which is gained through the experience. And all students interviewed expressed a keen interest to not only continue being involved in community or being involved in volunteering, but a wish to lead out on them when the opportunity arises. So that's where the sense of empowerment really came in. And the fourth and final key theme was the impact of community engagement leadership. And I asked a question throughout, I can't remember what number of questions, but we were well settled into the conversation. And I simply asked bluntly, well, why lead in community engagement? Why would you even explore this concept? And among the findings, the multi-layered benefits of community engagement participation for young people expands beyond the competence and the confidence gained. It's a broader sense of belonging to and finding that place in civil society. And that really does make sense when you think about it, particularly from a university student's perspective. They're in a new environment that might be away from home. The term wanting to find your tribe came up a few times throughout the interviews, which explains perfectly finding your place in society. Community engagement also offers a platform to highlight social injustices and the marginalization of those underrepresented in society. And again, it was a very impressive response from our students when they brought up that point. The sense then of social connectedness and belonging does link back really to the previous point. An emotional connectedness and a sense of empathy were highlighted for truly meaningful community engagement relationships. And then we broached the topic of global citizenship. And when considering global citizenship, leaders in community engagements, they can't be criticized for their lack of full understanding, given the vague definitions that existed around this. And it can be considered a somewhat ideal, unachievable, unobtainable, unrealistic in some parts, a utopian world. And while the students did make an effort to define global citizenship, and they were basically on the same kind of track, all of them, the concept of it being a reality seemed to be a little bit far-fetched for now anyway. So then my conclusions after all of that and after all of the interviews and all of the chats, which I really enjoyed, really showed that students, university students who are involved in community engagement and volunteering, there's an emotional intelligence there. There is that sense of empathy, despite some findings and despite some research arguing that there's a desensitization of empathy out there. I do have faith, certainly the students that I interviewed have such a great moral standard and sense of empathy. And lastly, the societal and global awareness that your community just isn't the village or the town that you live in, and it goes beyond that. It goes beyond your community, it goes into your region, it goes global. So 3 kind of main headings then in the conclusions for me. The findings suggest that community engagement and volunteering experiences has the potential to harness leadership skills towards a mutually beneficial and symbiotic relationship between the participant and the community in which they serve. And in essence, that is community engagement. It also suggests that the experiences has the potential to develop leaders who can prove to be as effective as those who advance formally through the bureaucratic hierarchies associated with other sectors. And by acknowledging the discipline of leadership in community engagement equal to that of its counterparts in the other sectors, those in community sector can become empowered to become true leaders of change. And it's at this grassroots, people-centered approach, it echoes a sense of social connectedness and is considered valuable in today's world. Considerations for future research. Community engagement at schools, that structured approach, it'll be interesting to observe and keep an eye on that and how it's rolled out and how it's developed, and if it is an all-inclusive opportunity for all students in those TY programs. And when I say that, I mean students with disabilities, students with learning difficulties, and that they're all encompassed into the same opportunity. Leadership in a changing and challenging world, more research there, I think. We live in multicultural communities. We live in multicultural societies, particularly for the sanctuary cities within the EU now, of which we are. Engagement with immigrants and refugees can overcome the negative press that we see all the time being reported. And this integration and potential contribution to our communities is something that I think really can be explored more. And let's turn that on its head and turn it into a positive and embrace the multicultural societies, the multicultural groups that we have in our societies and communities. And I suppose all in all, more research into that inclusion and diversity piece. And that touches on the schools and that touches on the multicultural communities. Lastly, cultivating leadership skills. So kind of coming full circle, the research explored the relationship between the experiences and the development of leadership skills. Transformative experiences in community engagement can allow individuals to become a valuable leadership resource that galvanizes collaboration and overcomes barriers using that people-centered grassroots approach. The transferability of the acquired leadership skills can be distilled through other aspects of life, be that academic, be that professional, or be that personal. And that's regardless of background, regardless of academic standing. That is a quick synopsis of what I have been doing. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Sean. That's brilliant. Really lovely to get the overview of your research. Thanks so much. I'm just going to stop